My name is Minjun Park, and for 35 years, I lived in a world ruled by sound. The roar of boardroom negotiations. The ping of million-dollar deals closing on my phone. The applause of shareholders when I announced another record-breaking quarter. As CEO of TechVision Korea, one of Seoul's fastest-growing software companies, my voice was power. People listened when I spoke. They trembled when I raised my tone. They celebrated when I praised them. I thought I had everything. A penthouse overlooking the Han River. A luxury car for every day of the week. Invitations to exclusive galas where Korea's elite mingled with champagne and hollow laughter. My face appeared in business magazines with titles like The Wolf of Gangnam and Korea's Youngest Tech Titan. But I had nothing. Nothing real anyway. The day everything changed started like any other. I was rushing through Gangnam Station during morning rush hour, phone pressed to my ear, barking orders at my assistant about a presentation that needed to be perfect. I wasn't watching where I was going. Neither was she. We collided hard. My phone flew from my hand. Her bag spilled open, scattering art supplies across the pristine station floor. Colored pencils rolled in every direction like a rainbow explosion. "Are you blind?" I snapped, immediately bending to grab my phone. "Watch where you're." I looked up and stopped mid-sentence. She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Long dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Soft brown eyes that reflected the station lights. A paint-stained apron over casual clothes. But it wasn't her beauty that stopped me. It was the way she looked at me. She wasn't angry. She wasn't embarrassed. She was simply watching my lips with intense concentration. She started moving her hands rapidly, making shapes and gestures I didn't understand. Her face showed urgency, but no sound came from her mouth. That's when I realized she was using sign language. She couldn't hear me. She had never heard my angry words. She would never hear my voice. I'm sorry, I said, then realized how stupid that was. I pulled out my phone and typed quickly. "I'm sorry. Are you okay?" She read it and nodded, offering a small smile. Then she typed back. "I'm fine. Sorry too." I wasn't paying attention. Her name was Ji-woo Han. She was 28 years old and worked as an illustrator for children's books. She had been deaf since birth. And in that moment, standing in the middle of Gangnam Station with art supplies scattered around us, something in my chest cracked open. I helped her collect her things. As I handed her the last colored pencil, a deep purple one, our fingers touched. The connection was electric. She looked up at me with those warm eyes, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Maybe ever. Curiosity. Wonder. A desire to know someone, really know them, not for what they could do for me but just for who they were. I couldn't stop thinking about Ji-woo. For 3 days I was distracted in meetings. My assistant noticed. My board members noticed. But I didn't care. On the 4th day I did something completely unlike me. I went back to Gangnam Station at the same time, hoping to see her again. She was there. Same paint-stained apron. Same concentration on her face as she walked, probably thinking about her next illustration. When she saw me, surprise flickered across her features, followed by something that looked like pleasure. I held up my phone with a message already typed. "Coffee." She smiled and nodded. That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a walk along the Han River. And that walk turned into me downloading a sign language app at midnight, determined to communicate with her in her language, not just through the sterile medium of typed words on a screen. Korean Sign Language is not easy. My fingers cramped. My brain, so used to processing complex algorithms and business strategies, struggled with the spatial grammar and facial expressions that were crucial to meaning. But Ji-woo was patient. She would laugh silently when I accidentally signed something ridiculous. She would gently correct my hand shapes. She would light up with joy when I finally got something right. For the first time in my life, I was a beginner at something. I was vulnerable. I made mistakes. And it was liberating. We started seeing each other regularly. I would leave work early, something I had never done. I canceled golf meetings with investors. I skipped networking events. My board members were concerned. My competitors smelled blood in the water. But I didn't care. With Jiwoo, I discovered a world I never knew existed. A world where communication wasn't about dominating a conversation or closing a deal. It was about truly seeing someone. About watching the subtle expressions that crossed her face. About understanding that silence wasn't empty. It was full of meaning, emotion, and connection. She showed me her world. The deaf community in Seoul was vibrant and tight-knit. I met her friends at a deaf cafe in Hongdae where signing hands filled the air like a beautiful, flowing dance. No one cared that I was a CEO. They cared that I was learning their language. That I respected their culture. That I made Jiwoo smile. One evening, 6 months into our relationship, Jiwoo and I were at her small apartment in Mapo. She had cooked kimchi jjigae, and we ate while she told me about her latest book project. A story about a rabbit who was different from the other rabbits but discovered that being different was a gift. After dinner, she showed me her sketchbooks. Page after page of incredible illustrations. Characters full of life and emotion. Scenes that told stories without words. I watched her hands move as she explained each drawing. Her face animated with passion. In that moment I realized I was in love with her. Completely, irrevocably in love. I signed awkwardly. "I love you." Her eyes widened. She looked at me with an intensity that made my heart race. Then she signed back. "I love you too." She pulled out her phone and typed something, then showed me. "But your world and my world are so different." "Are you sure?" I took her phone and typed. "I've never been more sure of anything." The problem started when my mother found out about Jiwoo. Hae-jin Park was the widow of a business mogul. She had raised me to be a warrior in the corporate world. Emotions were weakness. Relationships were strategic alliances. When she learned I was dating a deaf illustrator from a working-class family, she was horrified. She summoned me to her estate in Pyeongchangdong. The meeting was a disaster. "Are you insane?" she said, her voice cold as winter steel. "You're the CEO of a multi-billion-won company. You need a partner who can stand beside you at galas, who can network, who comes from the right family. This girl can't even hear you speak." "Her name is Jiwoo," I said firmly. "And I love her." "Love?" My mother laughed bitterly. "Love doesn't build empires, Min-jun. Love doesn't protect legacies. Your father and I made sacrifices so you could be where you are. Don't throw it away for some fantasy. Jiwoo isn't a fantasy. She's the most real thing in my life." My mother's eyes went cold. "If you continue this relationship, I will use my shares to call for your removal as CEO. The board will listen to me. And without your position, what will you be? Just another man who chose the wrong woman and lost everything." I left without another word. But the threat was real. My mother controlled 30% of TechVision's shares. Combined with other board members who were loyal to her, she could force me out. The pressure intensified from all sides. Business partners made concerned comments about my judgment. Investors questioned my focus. Tabloids started running stories about the mysterious woman the tech CEO was seeing, speculating about my mental state. Then the board meeting happened. My mother called an emergency session. She stood before the board, powerful men and women in expensive suits, and questioned my leadership, my recent decisions, my lack of focus. She never mentioned Jiwoo by name, but everyone knew what this was really about. "Min-jun has lost sight of what built this company," my mother said. "He's become distracted, erratic. The company needs stable leadership." I sat there, listening to people I had worked with for years question everything I had accomplished. Some defended me. Others stayed silent. The vote came down to a narrow margin, but the message was clear. Choose the company or choose Jiwoo. That night, I met Jiwoo at our favorite spot along the Han River. The city lights reflected on the water like scattered diamonds. She knew something was wrong. I didn't need to sign it, she could read it in my face. I pulled out my phone and showed her everything that had happened. The board meeting. My mother's ultimatum. The impossible choice in front of me. She read it all, her expression growing sadder with each word. Then she typed, "I don't want to be the reason you lose everything you've worked for." I took her hands in mine and signed slowly, carefully. "You aren't making me lose anything. They're taking it." But here's what I realized today. If I have to choose between a company that demands I deny my heart and a woman who taught me what my heart was for, there's no choice at all. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She typed, "What will you do?" I typed back, "Something I should have done years ago. Something real." The next morning, I walked into TechVision Tower for what I knew would be the last time as CEO. I wore my best suit. Not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I wanted to leave with dignity. Called an all-hands meeting. Every employee packed into the main conference hall, confused and concerned by the sudden announcement. The board sat in the front row, my mother among them, her face unreadable. I stepped to the podium. For a moment, I looked out at the company I had built from a startup into a powerhouse. The people I had hired. The culture I had created. The success we had achieved together. Then I began to speak. 10 years ago, I founded TechVision with a simple dream: to create technology that connected people. We've succeeded beyond my wildest expectations. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what connection really means. I forgot that business without humanity is just numbers on a screen. I forgot that success without love is just noise. I paused, seeing confusion on many faces. Recently, I met someone who reminded me what really matters. She can't hear my voice, but she understands me better than anyone ever has. She doesn't care about my title or my wealth. She cares about who I am when all of that is stripped away. And you know what? I like who I am with her better than who I've become here. My mother stood up. "Min-June, don't do this." I looked at her. Really looked at her. "Mom, you taught me to be strong. Fight. To win. But you never taught me to be happy. You never taught me to be kind. You never taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from a battle that's making you lose yourself." I turned back to the crowd. Effective immediately, I'm resigning as CEO of TechVision. I'm also selling all my shares in the company. This is not a decision made in anger or haste. It's a decision made with clarity and purpose. I'm choosing a different kind of wealth. The kind you can't put in a bank account. The room erupted. Some people were shocked. Some were angry. Some were crying. But I felt nothing but peace. I walked off that stage, out of the building, and into the uncertain future. My phone exploded with messages. The media went into a frenzy. But I turned off my phone and went to find Ji-woo. She was at the Deaf Cafe in Hongdae, working on illustrations. When she saw me walk in during the middle of a workday, still in my suit, she knew something had happened. I sat down across from her and signed, "I'm free." Her eyes filled with tears. She signed, "What did you do?" I signed, "I chose us. Chose real life. I chose love." She signed back, "I'm scared. What if you regret it?" I took her hands and signed, "The only thing I would regret is spending the rest of my life wondering what could have been." The months that followed were the hardest and the best of my life. I sold my penthouse and my luxury cars. I moved into a modest apartment in Yeonnam-dong. I went from wearing designer suits every day to comfortable jeans and sweaters. I went from being chauffeured everywhere to riding the subway like everyone else. And it was glorious. Ji-woo and I grew closer every day. Without the pressure of my corporate life, I could focus entirely on our relationship. I improved my sign language until I could have complex conversations. I learned deaf culture deeply. I met her family. Her mother who ran a small restaurant in Incheon, her father who worked at a factory, her younger brother who was also deaf and studying engineering. They welcomed me without reservations. They didn't care about who I used to be. They cared about how I treated Ji-woo, about whether I made her happy, about whether I was serious about building a life with her. 6 months after leaving TechVision, I proposed to Ji-woo at the Han River, at the exact spot where we had that crucial conversation. I had learned the signs for a proper proposal. I got down on one knee and signed. Jiwoo, before I met you, I thought power was measured in money and influence. You taught me that real power is in connection. Real strength is in vulnerability. Real success is in love. Will you marry me? She didn't even hesitate. She signed back immediately. Yes. 1,000 times yes. We married 3 months later in a small ceremony. Instead of the lavish wedding my mother would have demanded at a 5-star hotel, we held it at the Deaf Community Center in Seoul. Jiwoo's friends performed a beautiful sign language song. My few remaining true friends from my old life attended. My mother didn't come, but I had made peace with that. At the reception I gave a speech. Or rather, I signed while someone voiced it for the hearing guests. I talked about how Jiwoo had saved me from a life that looked successful but felt empty. How she had taught me that communication isn't about who can speak the loudest, but who can listen the deepest. How silence had become my greatest teacher. But even as we celebrated, I felt a familiar restlessness. I missed creating. I missed building. Not for profit or prestige, but for purpose. I started to imagine a new kind of company. One that bridged the gap between the deaf and hearing worlds. One that used technology for genuine inclusion. I shared the idea with Jiwoo one evening. She was immediately excited. She signed. What if we could create something that helps deaf people feel less isolated? What if we could build tools that make the hearing world more accessible? And that's when everything clicked into place. I used the money from selling my TechVision shares to fund a new startup. We called it Bridge, or in Korean. Our mission was simple. Create technology that connected deaf and hearing people more seamlessly. Our first product was a video call app with real-time sign language recognition and translation. It used AI to recognize signs and convert them to text or speech, and vice versa. Jiwoo led the design team, ensuring the interface was intuitive for deaf users. I handled the technical development and business strategy. We hired a diverse team, half deaf, half hearing. Everyone learned sign language. Everyone understood that this wasn't just a business. It was a mission. We worked out of a small office in Seong-Sudong, the scrappy startup neighborhood of Seoul. We had none of the luxury of TechVision, but we had something far more valuable. Purpose. The early days were brutal. We worked 18-hour days. Funding was tight. Many investors passed on us, skeptical about the market size. Some of my former colleagues from the tech world whispered that I had lost my edge, that I had gone soft. But Jiwoo kept me grounded. Every night we would go home to our small apartment, eat simple meals, and sign to each other about our dreams for Bridge. She would show me user feedback from deaf beta testers who were crying tears of joy at being able to communicate more easily with their hearing family members. She would remind me that success wasn't about how fast we grew, but about how many lives we changed. Slowly, things started to turn around. We got our first major client, a hospital system that wanted to improve communication with deaf patients. Then a school district. Then a government agency. The app started spreading through word of mouth in the deaf community. A year after launching, we had 50,000 users. 2 years later, 200,000. Major tech companies started noticing. Not to compete, but to partner. They saw what we had seen. There was a huge underserved market of deaf and hard of hearing people who needed better technology. But the real breakthrough came when a major Korean conglomerate approached us about acquiring Bridge. The offer was substantial, enough to make me wealthy again, though not at the level I had been before. I brought the offer to the team. We had a long discussion, with signs flying fast and furious around the conference table. The deaf team members had valid concerns. Would a big corporation understand the mission? Would they keep the team intact? Would they dilute what made Bridge special? I signed to everyone. Here's what I learned from my last company. Growth for its own sake is meaningless. Profit without purpose is empty. We will only accept this offer if they agree to 3 conditions. 1. Our entire team stays together. 2. We maintain creative control over the product. 3. A significant portion of the profits go into a foundation that supports deaf education and accessibility technology worldwide. To my surprise, they agreed to everything. The acquisition closed 6 months later. Bridge became a subsidiary of one of Korea's most respected tech companies, but we maintained our independence. And I became a CEO again, but a very different kind of CEO than I had been before. 3 years after I had walked away from TechVision, I stood on a stage at a major tech conference in Seoul. But this time I wasn't alone. Ji-woo stood beside me and we presented together. Me speaking, her signing, with live translation screens showing both. We talked about Bridge's journey. About how technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. About how the most innovative solutions often come from understanding marginalized communities. About how love and business aren't opposites. They can fuel each other when aligned with the right values. The audience gave us a standing ovation. But what meant more to me was seeing the deaf community members in the audience, signing applause, waving hands in the air, their faces beaming with pride. After the presentation, a reporter asked me, "Do you regret leaving TechVision? Giving up all that power and wealth?" I looked at Ji-woo, who was watching my lips so she could follow the conversation. I took her hand and answered, "I didn't give up anything. I traded fool's gold for real treasure. TechVision, I was rich and empty. At Bridge, with Ji-woo by my side, I'm wealthy beyond measure. I have a company that matters, work that has meaning, team that feels like family, and a wife who reminds me every day what it means to truly communicate, to truly connect, to truly love." That evening, Ji-woo and I returned to our apartment. We had upgraded to a nicer place in Hanamdong, but nothing extravagant. We cooked dinner together, as we did most nights. Kimchi fried rice, her favorite. As we ate, she signed to me, "I'm proud of you. Not because of Bridge's success, but because you stayed true to who you became. You could have gone back to being the old Minjun, but you chose to be the better version." I signed back, "You made me the better version. Before you, I thought strength was never showing weakness. Success was never failing. Power was never bending. You taught me that real strength is vulnerability. Real success is growth. Real power is in choosing love even when it costs you everything." She smiled and signed, "We should go to the Han River tomorrow. It's been a while." He nodded. The Han River had become our place. Where we had collided. Where we had fallen in love. Where I had proposed. Where we always returned when we needed to remember what mattered. 5 years into our marriage, Ji-woo and I were invited to speak at a prestigious university about entrepreneurship and social impact. The auditorium was packed with students, their faces eager and ambitious, reminding me of who I used to be. I began by telling them my story, the ruthless CEO who had everything and nothing, the collision in Gangnam Station, the choice between corporate power and authentic love, the leap into uncertainty. Then Ji-woo took over, signing while an interpreter voiced her words. "Many people pity me for being deaf. They think I've lost something precious, the ability to hear music, voices, laughter. And yes, there are challenges. But I've also gained something that hearing people often miss. I've learned to pay attention, to watch faces, body language, micro-expressions. I can see things that others miss because they're too distracted by noise." She paused, then continued. "When I met Minjun, he was drowning in noise. The noise of expectations. The noise of ambition. The noise of a life that looked successful but felt hollow. In our relationship, he had to learn my language, yes. But more importantly, he had to learn silence. And in that silence, he found himself." I took over again, speaking while she signed. "Here's what I want to tell you all. You're at the beginning of your careers. You're ambitious. You want to succeed. And you should. The world needs your talents and energy. But don't make the mistake I made. Don't confuse noise with substance. Don't measure your worth by your title or your bank account. Don't sacrifice the people who see you, really see you, for people who only see what you can do for them." A student raised her hand. "But Mr. Park, didn't you have to lose everything to learn that lesson?" How can we avoid making the same mistakes without experiencing the same loss? Smiled. That's the beautiful thing. You don't have to lose everything if you keep your priorities straight from the beginning. I lost my way because I believed the lie that professional success and personal fulfillment were separate things. That you had to be ruthless in business and kind at home. That you had to choose between making money and making meaning. But that's false. You can build a company that's both profitable and purposeful. You can be both successful and happy. You can have both wealth and worth. Jiwoo signed something to me. I nodded and translated for the audience. My wife is reminding me to tell you that this isn't just about romantic relationships. It's about all your relationships. With family, friends, colleagues, community. In our me-first hustle culture world, we're told that relationships are distractions from success. But relationships are the foundation of real success. Bridge didn't succeed because of my technical skills or business acumen. It succeeded because we built a team that genuinely cared about each other and our mission. Because we stayed connected to the community we were serving. Because we never lost sight of the human beings behind the user metrics. After the talk, students lined up to ask questions and share their own stories. Many were moved to tears. One young woman signed to Jiwoo that she was hard of hearing and had hidden it throughout university, afraid it would make her less competitive in the job market. Jiwoo held her hands and signed to her. Your difference is your strength. Don't hide it. Use it. The world needs your unique perspective. That night, lying in bed, Jiwoo and I reflected on how far we'd come. I signed to her in the dark. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't collided that day? She signed back. I don't wonder because it doesn't matter. We did collide. We did fall in love. We did build this life. That's what matters. I signed. I hope you know that you saved my life. She signed. No, you saved your own life. I just showed you it was worth saving. As Bridge continued to grow, we expanded our mission. We launched Bridge Academy, a free online platform teaching sign language to hearing people. We partnered with schools to integrate deaf awareness into curricula. We created a venture fund that invested in other disability-focused startups. We hired dozens of deaf employees across all departments, not as a charity, but because they were excellent at their jobs. My mother and I eventually reconciled. It took years, but seeing Jiwoo's patience and grace slowly softened her. She came to Sunday dinners at our apartment. She learned basic signs. She never fully apologized for the ultimatum she had given me, but one day she signed thank you to Jiwoo, clumsy and awkward but genuine. That was enough. Some of my former colleagues from TechVision reached out. A few admitted they had been jealous of my courage to walk away. Others were going through their own crises, realizing that the golden handcuffs were still handcuffs. I tried to help where I could, but I always told them the same thing. No one can make the decision for you. You have to decide what kind of life you want to live. TechVision itself had struggled after I left. The company was still profitable, but it had lost its innovative edge. It became just another big tech company, chasing quarterly earnings instead of breakthrough ideas. I felt no schadenfreude about this. If anything, I felt sad that a company with so much potential had become so ordinary. Meanwhile, Bridge continued to punch above its weight. We launched new products, a sign language learning game for children, an AI-powered captioning tool that actually understood context, a social platform designed specifically for the deaf community. Each product was developed in close consultation with deaf users. We never assumed we knew what they needed. We always asked. The recognition came steadily. Awards for social innovation. Features in international media. Speaking invitations from around the world. But the recognition that meant most came from deaf individuals who would approach Jiwoo and me at events, signing their gratitude through tears, telling us that our products had allowed them to connect with their hearing families in ways they never thought possible. One elderly deaf woman told us that she had been able to hear her granddaughter's voice for the first time through our app's translation feature. She signed. For 70 years, I wondered what my family sounded like. Now I know. Thank you for giving me that gift. Jiwoo cried, signing with her for almost an hour, Two deaf women understanding each other perfectly in a language that needed no sound. 10 years after I walked away from TechVision, Ji-woo and I stood at Gangnam Station, at the exact spot where we had first collided. We had decided to recreate that moment for a documentary about Bridge's founding story. As the camera crew set up, I looked around at the busy station. So much had changed. So much had stayed the same. People still rushed by, absorbed in their phones. Life still moved at its frantic soul pace. But I was different. Completely, fundamentally different. The director asked us to walk toward each other and act out the collision. It felt strange to stage something that had been so spontaneous and life-changing. But as Ji-woo and I walked toward each other, something shifted. Eyes met. She smiled that same smile from 10 years ago. And I felt that same electric jolt, that same sense of recognition, that same feeling of finding something I didn't know I had been searching for. We didn't stage the collision. Instead, we embraced right there in the middle of the station, commuters flowing around us like water around a stone. The director loved it. "That's the shot," he said. "That's the real story." After filming, Ji-woo and I went to the Han River one more time. It was sunset, the sky painted in brilliant oranges and pinks. We sat on our favorite bench, the one with the best view of the city skyline. I signed to her. "If you could go back to that day in the station, knowing everything that would happen, the pain, the sacrifice, the uncertainty, would you still want to meet me?" She looked at me with those same warm brown eyes that had captivated me a decade ago. She signed. "Every single time. In every universe. In every timeline. I would choose you. I would choose us. I would choose this life." I signed back. "I used to think I had to choose between success and love. Between ambition and authenticity. Between power and purpose. But you taught me that those aren't real choices. Real success includes love. Real ambition is about authentic impact. Real power comes from living with purpose. I didn't give up anything when I chose you. I gained everything." She smiled and signed. "So what now? What's next for us?" I signed. "More of this. Building things that matter. Loving each other deeply. Creating change in the world. Living a life we're proud of. Growing old together. Teaching others that there's a different way to measure wealth. That's the legacy I want to leave. Not a business empire, but proof that you can be both successful and happy, both ambitious and kind, both driven and deeply connected to the people you love." As the sun set over Seoul, painting the Han River in gold, I pulled Ji-woo close. In the silence, that beautiful, profound silence that had taught me more than 1,000 boardroom speeches, I understood the full truth of my journey. I had been a CEO who had everything. Then I became a man who lost it all. And finally, I became someone who understood that love, purpose, and authentic connection were worth more than any empire I could build. Bridge was now valued at over 500 billion won. We employed 300 people. We had served millions of deaf and hard-of-hearing users worldwide. We had changed lives, broken barriers, and built bridges, literal and metaphorical. But my greatest achievement wasn't listed on any balance sheet. It was sitting beside me on that bench, her hand in mine. Her presence a constant reminder that the best decisions are the ones that align your outer life with your inner truth. I had been powerful. Now I was happy. And happiness, I had learned, was the greatest power of all. As we walked home through the bustling streets of Seoul, hand in hand, I signed to Ji-woo. "Thank you for teaching me that silence can be louder than any applause. That love is more valuable than any stock portfolio. That being truly seen by one person matters more than being visible to millions." She signed back. "Thank you for choosing me. For choosing us. For choosing real life over the illusion of success. You gave up everything you thought mattered. And look what you gained." I looked at her, then at the city around us, then at the life we had built together. She was right. I had gained everything that actually mattered. And I had finally found my voice. Not in sound, but in silence. Not in power, but in love. Not in what I said, but in what I did. The girl who never heard my voice had taught me what it really means to be heard. And in losing everything, I had found myself.